So if you're hosting a sleepover at your house and you make your kids' friends sign a contract before the sleepover, you cannot listen to this episode.
Just want to finish these chats with Dad. Dad, I just want to chat with you some more.
Welcome to another episode of Dad Chat.
Dad stuff, okay?
For everything dads need to know about business, life, news, and doing everything they need to do to take over the world.
Take over the world.
And still get home in time for dinner.
Time for dinner, sweetie.
With your hosts, Greg Rollette and Matthew Goldfarb.
Well, let's get into some dad chatting. And man, it is, we're recording this on a Tuesday morning. Yesterday was Monday. I skipped school yesterday and skipped work. Took Colton over to the Tampa Bay Rays game. They won. They beat the Astros 10-3. Best game ever. And now I'm back early morning. I feel more hungover recording this podcast than I did after a long Friday night out at the bars. How are you feeling this morning? Hopefully you're doing better than me.
I'm doing good. I'm on the days sans kids, so I slept, like a normal human being, and I'm feeling good.
Good for you, man. I'm glad you got some solid sleep.
Well, it's like it's 2 days a week at this point. It's 2 days a week and maybe one night on a weekend if I don't have Nate. But when I have him, it's just forget it, because he sleeps in his room, but inevitably at some point in the night he comes into my room, and sometimes I'm awake, I'll put him back, and then sometimes I just wake up and have these little feet kicking me in the stomach. And that's just part of dad life. I can't even imagine you've got a full romper room house over there.
Yeah, luckily we somehow managed to keep them in their rooms, but it is like last night. So the game was a 1:00 game in Tampa. And so I'm like, this is like the best case scenario. I can leave in the morning. The game will be over at like 4. It's about a 2.5 hour drive. I'll be home by 6:37. And no, ended up being a 4-hour game. So it ends at 5:00, downtown St. Pete, traffic, and like a wicked, nasty thunderstorm like I've never seen. So we just didn't even leave the car. We ended up getting food, got home at like 9:15, 9:30 last night for a 1:00 game. And it was like the longest day ever. And Colton was like a trooper. He stayed positive and happy all day. It helps when the Rays actually win. I think if they lost, we both would have been like demoralized and like weeping the whole way home. So, cheering and rooting and high-fiving for a couple hours, I think helps your mood on that drive. And it was a really cool day, man. Really, really cool day. What I think I want to start today's episode with is an article you found that I resonate with 100%, and it comes from Pop Sugar, and it says every parent needs to hear this dad's reason why it's not about being the best. And he's a dad of a soccer player who had a breakdown during practice. And, he said, we got in the car to drive home. I sat there for a bit knowing that I needed to say something, but not sure what. I think the natural response and his natural response is like, suck it up, like play hard, like you're a man, like go. And instead he took his kid to ice cream. And it was really, really cool. Matt, why don't you break down a little bit of what you saw from this article and what kind of stood out in his response to his son melting down or breaking down at soccer?
Yeah. So, I think traditionally the way it kind of worked with dads and sons was like, even as a young kid, if like you were having a tough time or somebody's mean to you, dads used to say, be a man, toughen up, just be tough, walk it off, whatever. And this dad realized that was kind of how he grew up, with coaches telling him that, and that it didn't make him feel better to have someone say, be a man. It actually made him feel worse. And so when he saw his kid was having problems, rather than go that route, he said, I'm going to be understanding and open and have a real conversation with my kid. And so I love this, because he was just like, we're going to go do something fun, but I need you to tell me what you're feeling, what you've got going on, what your experience was. And the kid kind of laid it out and, talked about the challenges he was having. He wasn't being able to get the ball as much as other kids. And his dad just turned it into this lesson of, it's not about being the best. You don't have to be the winner every time. It's about trying, and it's about setting goals and being willing to just keep going back if you haven't gotten to where you wanted. And I just thought it was a real inspiring article, and also just really a way for the modern, for us as modern dads. It's not about being super alpha male and, I'm going to, bench press everybody. It's how do we actually teach lessons to our kids? And so I just found this to be, I resonated with what this father had done. And I actually agree, because I think, it'd be great if, a 7-year-old can be the next Pele, but it's really, sports are about teaching life lessons, especially if I think back to last week talking about AB and his, disasters on the field. Teaching your kid the point of sports, which is to grow and to learn and to set goals. It was a really powerful article to me. What do you think?
Yeah, so a couple things stood out to me as a coach and as a dad of an athlete who has some skills and abilities. I took two things away from this. One is I love the fact that he did ice cream with stipulations. You got to tell me everything. Because I think this is something kids are scared to tell their parents what's really going on, right? They either don't know what to say, they don't know how to express what they're feeling. And, sometimes, and I'm that way as a coach. I'm like, come on, man, get up, get out there. Like it's time to play. And I am a little aggressive in the way that I coach, but sometimes you do need to just tell me what's going on, man. Like what is happening? And I did that with Colton earlier this season. He's the starting shortstop, which is traditionally kind of where the better players play. And we put a lot of responsibility on him to call the plays before every hitter. And he's, 6, just turned 7 last week. And he was so stressed out that he almost didn't want to play. And this is a kid who plays baseball probably 16 hours a day, right? He plays baseball in his sleep. And to him to not want to play. And I finally talked to him. He's like, Dad, I don't want to mess up. I don't want to call the wrong play and ruin it for our team. And this stress. And so, but I listened to him. And I think that was really important, is sometimes we got to listen to our kids, see what the problem is, so that we as parents and we as coaches can fix it. So I think that was thing one. Thing two, what I really liked about this, what he said is it's about growth. It's about gaining skills. Your whole life will be like this. Look, I'm not the best person at like Microsoft Excel or, certain different things in my business, but it's about growth. It's about developing skills. And for me, the skills in my business right now, the skills that I'm trying to develop are delegating, leading, outsourcing, allowing me to do the things that I am the best at. But I still need skills in the other areas so that I can manage all of these things in my life and in my business. Because look, I'm not the best at, certain things around the house. I'm not the best at a lot of things in business. I'm really good at a few things. But it doesn't mean that it's not about growth and it's not about acquiring skills. I think that's so important. And that's what, sports can teach these kids is like, look, if this kid wasn't good at dribbling the soccer ball or whatever it was, develop that skill, because now if you can learn that, you can learn how to do something on the fly on your job. You can learn how to do something at school. You can learn how to do something in your relationship. So I think it was about listening. And to me, it's about growth and skill development, because that's what's really going to help you and set you apart in life.
What you said, you got it. Right.
No, man. I obviously sports, it plays a huge role in my life, and I see the parallel into everything that it does, from confidence to the skill development. So yeah, man, I can go ham on that. I'm gonna let you take this one because this one is hilarious. It was an article about a mom who made was it the friends? Was it the other parents sign like a waiver, like a contract for a sleepover? I thought this was like absolutely absurd. So, we're not really about bashing moms here, but this is like, I think this one's a little over the top.
This was a, quote, super strict sleepover contract for 10-year-olds. Now, this is a mom, she made the kids sign the contract when they came over. And, definitely like, you have rules in your house when you have friends over, and sometimes they're different than your own rules. But this definitely went crazy. She had a list of different things like, it says here, number 1, touching, tickling of other people will result in immediate physical separation that could remain in place until pickup time. This means we keep our hands to ourselves and to ourselves and off of each other. Changing of clothes will be done independently and in a private space with the individual not in company of anyone else. This means no nudity of any sort. This whole thing, I mean, it's when I sent this to you, I think you said you want to put this mom on blast. Just, it's one thing to have rules, but it's another thing to like be so slavish and crazy that like you can't, like if you put so many rules against a kid, like they're just going to be terrified to do anything. And the whole thing was just ridiculous. Like this mom wrote something about, she wanted it to be, the promise of this was to maintain the comfort and safety of all guests and residents. And the attendees promised to do their best to maintain Mrs. whatever her name is, calm demeanor and peace of mind. This
Jeez. Don't even have a sleepover.
Yeah,
don't even
I
do it.
mean, part of I hate to say it, but I mean, part of having sleepovers is to be a little crazy, and I'm not saying I don't want that when my kids have sleepovers, but it's such a unique and important experience that if you're so rigid, yeah, it's like what is the point of this?
Man, they like sucked the fun out of the sleepover before this. Like, if that's how the sleepover started, imagine what happens like when you do have the TV on too loud, or you ask for the cookies, or to make like, I don't know, man. Like, I just I, you got to let the kids have a good time. Yes, within boundaries, and there are rules. There's lights out. There's but man, you know what you're getting into in a sleepover. There's going to be some debauchery. There's going to be some pillow fighting. There's going to be some arguing. There's going to be some loud, shenanigans. Like, that's part of being a kid. That's like they just suck the fun out of it. And if you're a mom doing this or a dad doing this, just don't even have the sleepover at your house. Send them out to somebody else's house so you can have your calm and peace, without your kids there.
Well, my favorite part was in the article, and obviously we'll post this for everybody, but basically it says, after initially posted to Instagram stories, it ended up being screen grabs shared to Reddit where people talked about how crazy rigid the mom is. And it says, quote, calm demeanor. Yeah, I fucking bet, wrote one user. And then another person said, this lady's kids are going to have no friends. And they're not wrong. It's kind of, for me, like, I grew up in a house where we always had people over. That was kind of a staple of things. And I grew up in a small house, so God bless my parents, because I know we were noisy as hell. But yeah, like, if you are so rigid, like, yeah, no one's going to want to spend time with you and your kids. And so that's part of the fun of it. And, when you send your kids out to a sleepover, you get that break and you're giving your kids a break. But if you make a kid sign a contract at 10 years old, my God, like, I
feel bad for her kid. Because, like, oh man. Anyway, moving on. We could blast that one all day. I want to talk about this one. It's an article I found from he's probably my favorite young author today, and he's not as young as he used to be, but he's kind of in the millennial author world. It's Ryan Holiday, and this is an article that he wrote on Medium, and it was the life-changing magic of having enough. What would happen if we stopped constantly lifting our eyes to the next target? And this is so prevalent in the entrepreneurial world. I had some friends over on Saturday, all entrepreneurs, kind of freelancers, and we were having the same conversation of, when is enough enough? And as entrepreneurs, as creatives, enough is never enough, because as soon as you write one book, you want to write the next book. As soon as you launch one business, you're already thinking about the next one. As soon as you get one client, you haven't even done that project and you're thinking about the next project. Like, we're always thinking of the next thing. And I loved this. There was something from Kurt Vonnegut and Joseph Heller that he put in here right after Joseph wrote the book Catch 22. And they said, standing in the palatial second home of the billionaire host, Vonnegut began to needle his friend, and he described this exchange in a poem he published in the New Yorker. He said, I said, Joe, how does it make you feel to know that our host only yesterday may have made more money than your novel Catch 22 has earned in its entire history? And Joe said, I've got something he can never have. And Kurt said, what on earth could that be, Joe? And Joe said, the knowledge that I've got enough. And I was like, man, that's so powerful. And it's almost, Matt, it brings me to like why you and I decided to do this podcast. Like, we have no expectations. We're not trying to take over the world, even though we are, and we obviously want a large, but like, we're doing this because we have enough, and we want to help other dads. You and I just wanted to catch up and talk. And like, it's that feeling of, what, life is pretty good. Let's share it with others. And it's not because we're chasing the next car or the next product launch or the next client or the next this or that. There is some kind of a magic in having enough, but still doing projects, because there's this natural human tendency to always want more, right? To conquer the next conquest, but without expectations, I think is kind of the brilliant part about why you and I are doing this, but also to get yourself to a place where you're not, keeping up with the Joneses. You're not, keeping up with the next product launch because your buddy just did one, like, just because you want to, I think, anyway, I thought this article was really good. And it's that constant reminder that stuff isn't what's going to make us happy, kind of living in the moment, being present with our kids, being present in our work is actually what's going to make us happy.
I definitely resonated with this article a lot, because it's definitely been a struggle for me. I think, when you start your own business, it's this whole idea of living on your own terms and kind of, not being a slave to anyone else. But then you start to create these dreams. And then, my old mentor, Suzanne Evans, used to say, what happens what happens when your dream becomes a reality, you know, and what comes next. And I think it is so easy to get caught up in the trap of, look what someone else is doing, and I just did something I'm proud of, but somebody did it to the nth degree. And I think really learning to find happiness in what you have, and like you said, doing things that inspire you and excite you, not just because of a monetary reward, is a really powerful thing. And I'm not saying someone who barely has enough to live on, like, yes, we want you to have enough, but you do reach a point where it's like, you have the home you want, you know, you have the health that you want, and you have a lot of things. And it's like, finding a way to find peace with that, I think, is one of the secrets to life. And I think there's just a lot of wisdom in that. And I also just like, because he, you know, Holiday talks about his own experience of like, he wanted to accomplish all these things. And now it's like, well, now what is there? And honestly, when you stop for a moment and you really practice that gratitude of like, holy crap, I've achieved all these things, that is when you can start to give back. That is when you can start to share what you've learned with other people. And this was, I really love this article, and I'm glad you shared it, and it's a beautiful one.
It is. I encourage everyone to go read it. Ryan's got a new book called Stillness is Key, or it's something along those lines. Just a great author. He really gets kind of modern society and what's happening. So good stuff. The next one, it's kind of a fun one, little nostalgia as we talk about some of the things that we grew up on. And this past Friday night, WWE SmackDown made its debut on Fox. And I think this was, it's a monumental moment for wrestling, because even in the heyday of WCW versus WWF and the Monday Night Wars and all that, it was still a cable, you know, it was USA Today or USA Network, it was TNT and TBS, like it wasn't Fox. So for Fox to give 2 hours of programming on a Friday night to wrestling, to Vince McMahon, I think this is a big deal for wrestling. And, you know, so a couple quick things. 3.9 million viewers from 8 to 10. It's a 5-year, $1 billion contract that Fox made. And it was a huge win. It was one of the biggest debuts in Fox history. Nearly 4 million viewers. I mean, it's just crazy. And they brought out all the stops. They had The Rock out there. He kind of made the kickoff in the beginning. I don't know. I think it's cool that it's coming back around, that it's still around. Like Vince McMahon has milked this thing for all it's worth. We don't need to go too far into this, but I thought it's interesting that, again, wrestling's back and it's bigger than ever. And wrestling somehow, just there's generations of wrestling, right? You had the Hulkster and Andre the Giant and Macho Man and the Big Boss Man and then it moves into Stone Cold and Triple H and The Rock. And now you have this new generation. And it's something that just these characters, Vince finds a way to relate them to the culture and to what's happening today. And again, $1 billion deal with Fox. That's no joke. You know, in addition to all the other things they have going on.
Yeah. So I don't know if you remember this, but I remember when I was a kid on Saturday nights. So, you know, Saturday Night Live would always come on, but every once in a while there was Saturday Night Wrestling, and you never really knew when it was going to come on, but it was always, and it was WWE, which obviously is now WWF, which is now WWE. But it was always like just this great surprise when it would pop up and you'd see Mean Gene and Jimmy Hart and all these people. And it was always just, it's built into the fabric, I think, of us, you know, how we grew up. And, you know, the interesting thing, not to go too far down this rabbit hole, but, you know, I think about how I feel like we're kind of the first generation that we're really bringing our kids back into our childhoods and our nostalgia, and kind of being able to share the things that we loved as kids with our own children. Like, I mean, my dad shared jazz albums with me, but, you know, he wasn't sitting there talking to me in depth about the things that he loved as a kid. And now Nate and I are, you know, we're chilling, we're watching Voltron and getting all these Legos and all these things. And it's really great when you can share something that was important to you when you were a little kid with your little kids.
I think, you know, things like Netflix and Amazon that have catalogs of all the stuff that we grew up on, you know, that are now available on demand. Even YouTube has a lot of the shows that we grew up on. And like, we can binge watch He-Man, you know, like, and normally, again, like when we were kids, we couldn't watch what our parents watched because there was only 5 stations and some cable. And like, so I think some of the streaming stuff has really been big for the nostalgia's. I mean, you see it in clothing, you see it in fashion, you see it in culture, you see it in toys, you see it in music. And it's really cool, like you said, to kind of share that with our kids. And another nostalgic thing that is coming up this month, it's October, right? And in addition to never ordering a pumpkin spice latte, one thing that we in our family never do is family costumes. But people go all out for family costumes. And you found this amazing article that broke it down step by step by step into how to do a family costume. What about you and Nate? You guys do your thing together? Does he just dress up and you're just in, t-shirt and shorts walking around? Like, what do you do Halloween as a tandem? Or you just let Nate do his thing?
In theory, we do it in tandem every year. From the moment, November 1st comes around, Nate's like, all right, well, next year I want to do this and we should do it together. And so we'll plan something, we'll get it all together. And then like 5 days before Halloween or even the night before, he changes up what he wants to do. So our idea of doing something together kind of always goes by the wayside. But I think this is awesome. I think it's a lot of fun when you can kind of team up with your kid if you're into that. We haven't done it, but I would love that. It's just I remember one year Nate was don't beat me up for this one, but I think when Nate was like 4, he was really into the Wiggles. I know you're hanging your head and shaking it right now at me. And so he was the red Wiggle. He was the red Wiggle. I was gonna be the yellow Wiggle, but then he didn't want me to be the yellow Wiggle, and it turned into a whole thing. But I don't know. I think anytime this is one of those things we talked about, I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago, with the viral video of the grandfather and the kid dressing up as Up. And these are memories. Like, so if your kid is into it, and like, how awesome is it if your kid looks back and is like, hey, we dressed up as, they have a picture here of them kind of doing the Wizard of Oz, or I think Nate's going to be Voltron this year. So maybe I can dress up as Hagar or Zoltan or Zoldar or whatever his name was. But I think it's a great experience, and I think it's a cool tradition if you're into it, and if you're not, that is totally okay too.
Yeah, I poke fun at it. Just Jen and I have never been super into Halloween. I think in our like early to mid 20s, everybody went downtown Orlando, and it's one of those nights that you can't walk. It's so packed, it's so crowded. For some reason, Orlando, it'll be 95 degrees on October 30th, and it'll be 30 degrees on October 31st. And yet the girls still wear nothing, and I'm just like, what are you doing? Like, I mean, again, I'm not going to hate that that's what you're wearing, but at the same time, I'm just like, this is, and it's uncomfortable. And I never really cared to dress up. And I say all that because this year we're doing a family costume. We are, I buckled into the pressure. It's all right that we're doing Avengers. We're doing Ryder. Really, our middle son really is into Marvel and Avengers and all that. And so he got to pick everyone's costume. So he gets to be Captain America. I think Colton's going to be Black Panther. I'm going to be Hawkeye, Jen's going to be Black Widow, and then the baby is going to be either Groot or Rocket. So we're doing family costumes this year. I think it's cute, and I think it's cool because the kids wanted to do it, not because I pressured them into doing it. It was, we let our youngest, or our middle son, like, he got to take the lead, and I think he got like that sense of like, like leadership, like I get to help, make all of this happen. And I think that's what's made it cool, as opposed to me being the parent, be like, all right, we got to do a family costume because we got to, crush everybody and be the talk of the neighborhood. I think we did it more for Ryder, and that's what's going to make it cool.
I love that. And my vote is for Groot.
I think that's a really, really, really good idea. So going from Halloween costumes, we can talk about provocative Halloween costumes in our next article that you found. And it's a new sex ed program for Gen Z kids. This was in the New York Post. It is a teacher who has now created an after-school sex ed class for Brooklyn tweens, answering questions such as, I think I'm gay. How do I know for sure? How do orgasms work? And what is porn? And I don't know about you, but when I was like 12, 13, 14, I had one friend who had like one of those cable boxes that they like stole the cable somehow, and it got the Playboy channel, and it didn't turn on until like midnight or whatever. Like, it was something weird, and we would just wait up just to watch like 10 minutes of like a boob pop out. now these kids don't gotta wait till midnight to put on the Playboy channel on a scrambled black box. They can just use their little good old cell phone, go to the Google and type in boobs and see whatever they want to see. So I know that, again, things are changing. Things are happening faster than ever. I don't actually think this is a bad idea to have these kinds of discussions. I don't know what age is the right age. I'm not quite there yet, but when you saw this article, what stood out to you, and what is it a good idea? Is it a bad idea? Is it taking it too far? Should a teacher be talking about this, or should it be us?
Yeah, I'm with you. Like, in the same sense that our kids are young, so I'm definitely hoping that I don't have to have as in depth of conversations, at least for a couple of years. But I think it's a great idea. I think kids have access and are exposed to things so young, and if we pretend like it's not happening and we pretend like it's a taboo subject, then they're going to develop shame around it, and they're going to find that information in other places. I think this is a great thing. I think at some point having these put into a school system, I think, is important. You obviously run into the problem of parents who don't always feel that it's appropriate, but I think it's good, and I think it's healthy. I think kids they're exposed to it. There's always, I remember growing up, being like 12 years old, and there's always that one kid who is sexually advanced than everyone and would share stories, and they were the ones who got the dirty mags and all of those things. I think being able to have a conversation with your kids and letting them feel comfortable, but also having an advocate who can maybe get into those conversations that you don't necessarily want to is a really great thing. And so I definitely am in support of this. Even at this point, Nate occasionally will ask me, how did I get in mommy's belly? And, he's very curious about his own penis. And I'm sure you have this too. He is fascinated by it. And so we're already having very light conversations, but I support this wholeheartedly. I think pretending that this is not an issue and pretending I don't want my kid to learn about sex and all the different things from some random website. I would rather it be from someone who is comfortable talking about it and makes them comfortable talking about it as well.
Yeah, I think, and again, I think the conversation has gotten so much bigger since we were kids with sexting, with Snapchat, and, taking photos, and, all the weird kind of things that we didn't really necessarily grow up on. And I got married young, so I never had to Tinder and do all these different kinds of things. You have, porn at everywhere you look. There's something out there. So I want to be a little more transparent, be more upfront, and talk about these kinds of things. I also think that having an advocate that you trust, that you can believe in, that is not you as the parent. Because look, I can tell, my three boys anything that I want, but they're going to go do whatever the heck they want to do anyway, right? Like, that's just, you're rebellious in your teen years. And so having something to turn to where they're with their peers and they can giggle about it, and they can, I think this is a great thing. It's not punting it to this teacher. I think it's a conversation you still have to have at home. It's things that you still need to be talking about, but having, an advocate, with your friends to go an avenue like this is super smart, and really, really cool article. If you want to kind of see what they're doing, we'll make sure we link to that in the show notes. A couple more left in today's episode as we wrap up. I want to talk about this one that you found. It says, you need to let your child fail. And this comes from She Knows. It says, psychology shows the benefits. I love this. So we talked earlier about, the kids not, they don't need to be the best, but they need to have growth. They need to develop these skills. But I also am very anti everybody gets a trophy, because there are winners and losers. Like, if I screw up something for a client, like this month, look, I lost 3 huge contracts this month for clients. I can't just, everyone gets a trophy, they should pay me anyway. No, I lost those. Like, that is stuff that is never coming back. Like, that is an L, right? And in life, you have to be able to deal with that. And I think sheltering kids from failure is a bad idea. That's my belief. I think that, if you are sheltering your kids and like everything is roses, and like, again, you want to make their childhood fun. Like, I make everything as I can, but like, look, some things are going to suck. Some things might sting, but you got to get back up. It goes back to the growth, the skill development, the teaching them to get back up. But failure is a part of life, and you fail a lot. At least, I fail a lot in a lot of different things, but it doesn't mean that I stay down. I get up from it. And I think that that's been better for me as I've grown up into an adult. When you read this and when you found this, what kind of stood out in your mind as to needing to let your child fail?
I think you said a lot of it. I think what I saw was exactly that. I think that culture of everybody gets a trophy is detrimental. I think kids need to develop resilience. You need to develop grit. You need to hit some hard times in order to develop the right attitude and develop resilience. And so this really spoke to me really well. And it's kind of like one of the things that was interesting. They kind of listed a bunch of reasons why protecting them is bad. And one of the biggest things was that it says you may be setting up your kids for anxiety and depression later in life. And we all have those friends who, I have a friend who's, in his mid 40s. He's never really had a challenge, God bless him. Like, both of his parents are healthy. They're married. He was always smart and talented and charming. And so everything just came real easily. And then suddenly, as he was hitting his late 30s, he wasn't hitting the success that he wanted. And it really was hard for him to kind of realize that, like, I'm not going to get everything I want. Whereas for me, I've had plenty of successes, don't get me wrong, but I've had a shitload of failures as well. And it's those failures that teach me more than anything. And so I think it is really, really important for kids. In the same way that we were talking about in that first article, like, you need to fail because you need to learn that failure isn't a bad thing. That's how you get better. You learn more from the things you don't get right than the things that you do. And so it's really, I think it's one of the best lessons you can teach your kids. And also, look, when you fail a bunch, when you finally do have a success, like, how much sweeter is that? Like, if you fail 9 times and the 10th one you get it, like, that makes it more special. But if I get a win every single time, I don't value when I actually do get those big successes or those big wins or big earnings. And yeah, this is one of those, such an important thing, but it also goes against our own parenting nature, which is we want to make everything easier. We want our kids to have an easier time than we do. But I also know that part of the reason I have the outlook that I have, and part of the reason I'm finding success in certain areas, was because I fell flat on my face in many instances in my life.
Yeah. So in Saturday's baseball game, Colton struck out his first 2 at bats. And, I was like, keep your head up. You got to go out there and play the field. And he struck out in the first inning, got back in the field and caught like an amazing pop-up, kind of catch. Keep your head in the game. You're going to get another shot. And then 3rd at bat, after 2 strikeouts, could easily have just phoned it in, gets a base hit. How much more exhilarating is that hit, knowing that they overcame that versus, the opposite? So I'm a big fan of letting them fail. Don't let them feel helpless. Empower them so that they can come back. It's just such, that vindication is just so cool. Last topic of the day. It's a fun one. The article comes from BuzzFeed, but you can check out, Will Smith on Instagram, and he shared this. He dropped, dude, Will Smith is so smart when it comes to social media, when it comes to nostalgia. Like, he just gets it. Fresh Prince of Bel-Air inspired clothing line. This is freaking genius. Again, goes back to nostalgia. We talked about it with wrestling. We talked about it, with the Nate's Halloween costume this year. Like, this is just cool. He's got the jacket that he wore, a reversible jacket that turns inside out with the tracksuit. He's got the Bel Air athletics. Obviously, Bel Air High is where they went to in the show. I mean, Will Smith is just so on point. Like, he gets it. He understands social media, the things that he's done on YouTube over the last 2 years, the specials that he's dropping, and just, he has found a way to keep himself relevant. I don't know, 30 years now, ever since he was rapping, and parents just don't understand. And now he's just the epitome of cool when it comes to, this generation.
Yeah. And so, it's funny, in our last episode, at one point, I forgot what we were talking about. Maybe it was music. And you said something, our parents just don't understand. And I meant to drop a Will Smith reference back at you, but I was caught up in the moment and didn't say it. So I like that he's coming back. Yeah, I'm with you. I think this is really, really cool stuff. And what I always like when you bring back nostalgic things is you take something that has an air of nostalgia, you update it so that it's still relevant. These are cool clothing. I have a feeling this is maybe a little more your style than mine, but I'm open to it. But from a marketing standpoint, it's absolutely brilliant. It's like, this is a series. It caught the zeitgeist. It's like everybody remembers it. Everyone knows it. And I think he's going to make a fortune out of this stuff. And I do kind of dig that reversible shirt.
So here's what I think is really, really cool is even if he doesn't sell one t-shirt, the PR, the press, the publicity, we're talking about it. And imagine just how many other podcasts, TV shows, things like that are talking about it. And he's got that new movie that's dropping right now. So everyone is talking about Will Smith, and at the right time and at the right place. And again, he's no dummy. He's very smart. He's got a great team around him, and nostalgia for the win that gets people talking about Will. And then guess what? He gets to drop in the fact that, oh yeah, by the way, and I think there was like a deadline on the merch. Yeah, it's available only now until October 14th. I wonder if that's when the movie comes out.
Was it Bad Boys 3?
I don't remember the name. Well, Bad Boys, but he's got another one where like he's like a
the Gemini Man.
Gemini Man. Yeah, that one. Let me see when that comes out. Gemini Man. Because I bet the drop date's like right around then. Yeah, it comes out October 11th. So how smart is that? That he's got a merch line that pre-sales end October 14th. He's got a movie coming out October 11th. Like, he is smart. This is just, it's smart marketing, use of nostalgia, use of his brand, kind of even poking fun at himself. Will Smith is smart. Smart dude.
Yes. And my dog agrees, as you can hear in the background.
And so really, really cool stuff. Again, all of the articles that we talked about are going to be in the show notes. So make sure that you go and you check them out. Leave us your feedback, send us your comments. And we really want, like, some of the topics that we talked about today, whether it was on the sex ed stuff, whether it was on Halloween costumes, like, let us know. Are you doing the family Halloween thing? Or are you like, no way, that's not for us? Anything that we talked about. Did you tune in? Did you watch SmackDown Live? Or are you like, you guys are like losers? Like, we would never turn into SmackDown Live and watch The Rock. But tell us what you guys thought of some of the articles. And obviously, if you have anything that you want us to cover, send them over to us over social media. We'd love to hear them. And I think that's one of the cool things about this community is just a bunch of dads, again, trying to take over the world and still get home in time for dinner. Matt, we did it again, man. Another good episode.
Awesome.